Hey guys, I have a special treat for you today. I have my first guest on the show, my buddy Nathan Reeves. He's from St. Louis area, but we go back several years. A worship leader friend of mine, and he has this great tool that he's developed over the years to kind of really assess the songs that they're singing and the songs they want to introduce and sing. So have a pen and paper out because you're going to want to take some notes. There's a lot of good stuff here. So hope you enjoy this today. Anyways, Nathan, it's good to have you on the show today. I say the show like it feels like I'm more official than I really am, but this is my 11th episode, and I was reassessing this the other day because like if I'm not careful, I get kind of sucked into like how many people has watched this, and I only have this many people watchers watching or listening, but what I reassured myself, and I was telling like the guys that I do life with, I said, this is scratching a teaching itch to me. And if nobody's watching it, like, hey, I can do this for a while because it's something that I enjoy and it's creating or it's scratching that itch. And so, but I do know that last week's episode or 2 weeks ago, I had to take last week off because of a sick kid at the home and it kind of messed up my schedule, but he's back at school and doing good. But I started getting a lot of like feedback from that. And so I think I'm on to something here that we all need to hear as worship leaders specifically, but I would even zoom out and say as pastors of churches and congregations and communities. Like, for one, we are pastors. And I talked about Colossians 3:16, and I really dove into the teaching and or I really dove into the Psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. But like I didn't even spend a lot of time in that episode talking about the teaching and admonishing. And so man, those words are super powerful. And if you look at the meanings of those, I don't have them in front of me, but like, so all the more reason we as worship leaders specifically, because that's who I'm talking to today, we are pastors. And I think if there's any misconception of we're here to be the appetizer to set up the stage for the preacher, man, I struggle with that because we're pastors too. And everything we say and do and lead, we're preaching through our singing. And I like to call it portable theology because it sticks with you, and it's not to elevate singing over the preaching, because I think it's all worship and it all needs to go together. But sometimes you hear people remembering the songs, and I think there's power to the musical component, and that's for another episode to dive into, like just what music does to the brain. It's fascinating, and so, but we don't have time for that today. But so I want to introduce you guys Nathan. He's a buddy of mine that I met years ago here in Kansas City through a mutual connection. And actually, I didn't tell you this before we were chatting, but it was at a worship leader fellowship that I remember meeting you specifically. And then we went to lunch afterwards. And
Yeah.
I just remember like you made an impression on me in a good way. Like you were very friendly, engaging. And me at that time of my life, I'd been leading worship for several years, but I was kind of taking on a new role. And like, there was still like, man, there's so much here I need to learn. And I felt like you were one of those persons that was open-handed and gracious to share what you've learned. And so that's always stuck with me. And so I thank you for making that impact on me. It was huge. So tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you are, what you do. Tell me a little bit about your family. So yeah.
Curtis, I appreciate your hospitality here. And again, I got to commend you on what you're doing with this because it's such a resource, your heart for worship leaders for the church. not only the theological component, which is most important, or the devotional important aspect, which is right there with it, but the practical also important. So I love seeing what you're doing with this. Curtis, again, it's good to meet you face to face remotely again, as you've
Right.
maintained in KC, and I've gone far afield. But yeah, I'll tell you a little about a bit about myself and kind of where I've come from. Lately, filling everyone in. My name is Nathan Reeves. I'm a worship pastor in the South St. Louis area. I'm serving at a place called Canaan Baptist Church, like land of Canaan, as in flowing with milk and honey. My wife and three kids and I will live nearby. But yeah, like you, I was born and raised in Kansas City. I was on the Kansas side, so I maintain my Jayhawks fandom. And Maggie, my wife, is a Missouri gal. I've got Missouri kids, so I've switched states on that side.
Yeah.
Again, we were born and raised in there in Kansas City. We followed a calling to Charlotte, North Carolina,
Mm.
just before 2020 and all that entailed hit. But I look back on that now, as I suppose everybody does, the silver linings coming from all of that we all went through, God providing for us during that tough lockdown time. And when I took this St. Louis position 2 years ago now, we realized how grateful we were to be back in the Midwest. Missouri Department of Transportation trucks are iconic for us. And so we look at those MoDOT trucks, and we were driving back into town to take this job. And I remember our first sighting of a MoDOT truck, and I never thought I'd be grateful for Missouri Department of Transportation. Look, it's a MoDOT truck. We're back. And it just made us realize how grateful we are to be in the Midwest as Midwesterners. This feels like home,
Mm.
and going to Charlotte for a couple of years made us realize how much we missed that. So we're so glad to be where we are, and serving where I am is wonderful. What you said about teaching really resonates with me.
Mm.
It kind of informs my ministry. It just heartens me, Curtis, that years ago, me being oblivious, that you felt blessed by that,
Mm.
because my training in college was as a high school band director. I thought that was the way I was going to go. I went to KU for music education, thinking that was the way I was going to go. Had a full music ed experience in school, and thought I was going to do that. And though my calling happened in college, very wonderful, going into ministry, into worship ministry, into church music, it's sort of it's in my blood, the ed portion of it. So it's sort of like, I guess, a performance major might feel most comfortable on stage, or a theory major might be well, those polls might be breaking apart songs all over the place. Composition, arrangement major, they'd have those focus areas. But for me, um it's got that ed flavor, trying to pass along. Can things be a blessing to my team, to the congregation? You be careful not to be too pedantic, of course, but
Mhm.
to just have just try to be a blessing and pass on whatever's been useful and working for you, and to see you doing it in the big way is
Mm.
well, it's music to my ears, man. It's cool to
Mhm.
see it happen.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, we were talking uh through Messenger a couple weeks ago, and actually before we started recording, I remember checking out a podcast that your church had, and I think your pastor had you on, if I have my facts correct, and you were walking through kind of the process you take to introduce songs, to kind of like look over songs currently you're doing, and I feel like this is such an important topic, as we talked about Colossians 3:16, teaching and admonishing one another through the singing of psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And so um kind of walk us through, like, what is that process called, like, kind of how did you come up with it, or how do you formulate that? And so kind of set that process up and share a little bit about that.
Sure. The blessing, I think the year was 2017, that it worked out to an acronym that rolls off the tongue. It's sometimes
Mm.
it's so important to have something memorable, and it
Absolutely.
just you can otherwise you just out of your head unless you're careful, you know. But
Right.
the acronym I use is MELTS, and I had to look back when you asked. I'd look back like what was the genesis of that? So yeah, I think it was 2017. I was serving at a church on the north side of Kansas City, and in a weekly meeting with my senior pastor, uh, and just really lamenting how
Mm.
tough it was to sift through so much new sick music. Again, music intended to be sung in a corporate worship environment. There's so much of it. I
Right.
freely admit that I did not have. There may have been wonderful resources out there, but all I'd done is I read a couple of blogs that had a couple of tips for choosing songs, and I really was not educated in all that was there. I just read some lists, nothing beyond that. So, talking with my pastor, I started listing qualities, what's important to consider, and I came up with a few aspects of it. I came up with the M, which is, and I'll go ahead and spell out the
Yeah.
acronym now. The acronym is MELTS, like snow melts in the sunshine. And the final version of this is MELTS M, musically interesting. Does
Mm.
the song sound like many other songs we've heard or done, or does it sound distinctive in some way? That's M.
Hmm.
E is encouraging a worshipful response. Does singing this song feel like you're reading a textbook, giving a dissertation? Is it dry? Is it academic? Or do you get the sense that a more genuine connection comes with singing these lyrics? Can you sing them honestly to God? And is there a worshipful response somehow? That's the E, encouraging a worshipful response. L is lyrically robust. Does the song
Mm.
have just a few repeated snippets or many rich stanzas, many rich sections of well worded text? T is theologically accurate. Obviously, biblically correct,
Mm.
scripturally accurate. That one's a pass fail. That
Hmm.
T, that theologically accurate. And then the final one in MELTS is S, singable. Now that's
Mm.
rhythmically and from a range comparison. Does a song
Mm.
avoid difficult rhythm? Does a song avoid long stretches in an extreme range for most singers? Usually you think of the hymnic range like middle D octave above, and it goes out of there, but that's sort of what you think of, and then
Mm.
rhythmically singable. And that's S, singable.
Mm.
So thinking through MELTS, when I first thought of it very clumsily, I thought of the M, the musically interesting. I thought of the L, the lyrically robust, and I thought of the T, theologically accurate. At the time, worshipful was a W, and I was in trouble because MWLT doesn't spell out anything. But then, okay, let's do a little finagle and say, okay, encouraging a worshipful response. That
Mm.
gave me the
Mm.
vowel for the acronym. Ah, ha,
Yeah.
ha. So
Yeah.
I went on my merry way with MELT, and my senior masters to like that, and I just floated that around and started kind of seeing songs through that filter. But then wisely, that pastor at the time, and I'll shout him out. I'm grateful to Pastor Rick McGinnis, and for
Mm.
all our differences of opinion that eventually led me leaving that church a while
Hmm.
later. Rick wisely suggested capturing that S. He's
Mm.
the one who suggested S. Don't forget singable. Like, oh,
Yeah.
of course, Pastor
Wow.
Rick, thank you for suggesting
Yeah.
that. So it became MELTS. I guess I could have gone with smelt, like Hopper, I suppose, but Melts seem to be a little better. But that
Yeah.
is the rubric I've been since refining and using everywhere I've been since to rate and evaluate congregational songs. So yeah, that was kind of the genesis of Melts back in 2017 or so.
Yeah. Man, I love hearing that, and I'm with you. I like things that are memorable, and I'm always trying to think of acronyms or everything starting with the same letter. And in fact, last night I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just trying to like figure out all the world's problems and wasn't having any luck at 3 a.m. But I was like trying to come up with a acronym for something that was on my mind. But I wanted to kind of to you, and you kind of addressed it, but I want that's something I've been trying to. This is gonna show my musical what inefficiency. I think like I feel sometimes unworthy because my um uh like the background in terms of theory, like I know a little bit of theory, but like you could talk circles around me and I could learn a lot from you. But one of the things I've tried to be more intentional recently, and it's sad to say at this stage of my worship leadership in almost 2 decades, but is to really to look at the singability range, because that's something I've gotten feedback from people is like pay attention to the range for the congregation. So did I hear you correctly? You said typically a congregational range is middle D to the octave, or did you say middle C, or what did you say?
Thanks for asking. It is the classic, and again, I was raised in more of a hymnody,
Yeah.
the hymnal base when I was growing up. So that's a hymnic rule
Yeah.
usually. But when you're talking about the tessitura, the usual range that a song takes, apart from stray notes here or there, is if it can stay between middle C and the
Mm-hmm.
octave above,
Okay.
seems to be a way that hymns tend to do that. So I tend to do that, and it helps that I'm a guilt-ridden baritone. You know, a lot of these worship leaders, you think of Phil Wickham and Stephen
Right.
Curtis Chapman and Chris Tomlin. These are huge tenors, and
Right.
as a ridden baritone, which I call myself, I'm not in those places. But one advantage I have as a baritone is that lines up very well with an
Mm.
alto mezzo range for the ladies, so
Mm-hmm.
I can convert well. So if it's uncomfortable for me,
Yeah.
it's likely going to be uncomfortable for the congregation who's coming in at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning and they're
Yeah.
still got coffee, that sort of thing, and
Right.
try to drink their
Yeah.
coffee and all of that. So that's kind of the range
Mm.
for singability as best as we can. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I like I said, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I've just kind of really paid attention to that in the last few months for the first time, but finding middle C on the guitar and then like kind of singing through the melody, and then okay, if I'm a step or two, okay, that might be okay since it's just going to hit that, but that's caused me to okay, I usually sing that song in this key. I'm going to now lower that a full key or a half step, because of trying to stay within that range. That so I'm glad you shared that with us, because I don't think a lot of people know that, and it's not right or wrong, but like my method used to be, and that's why I've grown from that, was okay, well actually early on it was like I'm going to try to sing everything Chris Tomlin's range, which was stupid, and it hurt. I don't know why I
I
tried.
can't do it.
Yeah. Oh, I would do it, but it wasn't pretty and it didn't sound great. And so then my rule became, okay, let's take Chris Tomlin or the Shanes and let's lower it by two keys. And that was my rule of thumb. But I think now I'm
Yeah.
being more mindful of the theory side of it. And because it is that singability is important. I think I shared this in a couple episodes ago. But like there's, and I don't want to diverge here much, but one thing I learned over the years is we have four conversations as a worship leader. I'm just going to briefly hit them, but like every time we take the stage, we have a vertical conversation with the Lord, we have a horizontal conversation with our band, we have a outward conversation with the congregation, and then we have this inner critic that sits on our shoulder speaking either like negativity or like pride in us, either or both and
Yes.
so why I bring that up is if you are trying to sing in the range you want to sing it in, and maybe you do have more of a tenor voice, you might find yourself, your conversation with the crowd is diminishing because now they're just able to watch you but they can't really participate. So I think trying to remember all that, which there's a lot to remember as a leader, but is important.
Sure.
You know, that's why we take it seriously. So, Man, I love
Man,
that.
I gotta say,
Yeah.
and I don't want to
No.
interrupt you there, Curtis, but I love that. This is professional theory now, so but may be an exchange of theft because I never captured what you
Yeah.
said. That's so great. The 4 different conversations. Uh, what I will contribute to that is it is a fraught thing
Mm,
because as you may have you've thought about this, we are in the Pharisees' position in the temple.
mm,
Remember when it's the Pharisee
mhm,
and the tax collector, we are in the spotlight. We are in that very uh, difficult and a sin prone position of that spot where the well-regarded Pharisee was. And we're also in Lucifer's former job, darn it. You know,
mm,
that's a
mm.
big stinking deal. So
Wow. Yeah.
approaching this with humility and almost a little bit of godly fear, saying,
That's
watch
good.
out. You're in the
Yeah.
Pharisee's position and in Lucifer's job. Be careful. Pray,
Wow.
pray, pray, and be aware of the conversations, like you said, is so important.
Man, that's I'm writing that down, man. That's gold right
For
there. And I didn't even anticipate that gold nugget. Pharisees
well,
position and or how do you say that? Pharisees position Lucifer's I'm saying it wrong, but
you're in the Pharisee's position
yeah.
in the temple, like his spotlight, and
Right.
Lucifer's job. It's
Wow.
really a problem. We got to be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah, that's so good. So how do you've touched on some of this. Actually, let me kind of bleed a couple points together. Like so utilizing this process in terms of okay, um maybe it's like okay, let's look at the songs we're singing, and or it's probably extremely obviously important for any songs we want to introduce because I think you mentioned earlier there's so many songs being written and produced and there's a lot of good ones out there, so it's like sometimes I feel like well how can we keep up because if Curtis sang all the time what Curtis wanted to sing, like the congregation wouldn't be able to keep up. And so it's like taking, I think I mentioned this in one of my episodes, you got to take your preference out of it. That's one of the rules and thumb. We can't come into church with just our preference. Preference is okay, but sometimes that gets elevated higher and like that can lead to division in the church really quick. Well, they don't sing the songs I want, they don't sing enough hymns, they sing too many choruses, the carpet's red. I mean, we could go down the line, but like
Right.
preference can get in the way of our worship and our worship response. So kind of how do you utilize this for song selections and kind of piggying with that, um, who all has a voice in this process? Is it just you? Is it you and the pastor? Is it some trusted people on your team? Like speak to that a little bit.
The first thing that, and you'd alluded to it earlier in our conversation, is when you're in a new environment and shepherding this portion of the body of Christ as a worship leader, find out what's being sung.
Mm,
The first things when I came to this church here in St. Louis was just to establish a current song list. And maybe it's as simple as going through Planning Center and saying, what has been done in the past year? That's
it's good.
imperfect. That needs
Hmm.
augmentation. Maybe there are one-offs in there, but that was sort of a starting point. And going to my senior pastor, Pastor Daniel, and saying, is this right? What's missing? And from there, it's as you described. Can we choose songs well and go through this process or evaluate what's on this list? But at least from here on, for new song introduction, try to implement an accountable process. So yeah, it kind of does three things. First, it tries to quantify the unquantifiable. I freely admit
Mm-hmm.
you cannot. You talked about it earlier. This
Yeah.
mystical, not entirely describable thing that is music is more than just
Yeah.
an organized string of sounds and silences. In the
Mm,
purest sense,
mm,
that's what music is, an organized string of sounds and silences.
mm,
But that fails to capture this wonderful gift that God has given us of being able to put these theological messages to
Yeah.
pitch and rhythm with accompaniment. And it is not ineffable at its core. But this method tries, and
Mm.
you shoot for the moon and you miss, you hit the stars, or whatever that saying is. You try to get to them. So I absolutely, I even printed out some of the things I did. I send an email to my senior pastor, and at Canaan we have multiple campuses now, to the other camp pastors and the other campus worship pastors. Um, and I send an email with a batch of songs, each of them evaluated uh, with this rubric.
Mm.
Now, there are 5 letters in M.E.L.T.S.
Mm-hmm.
I am rating 4 of them on a scale of 1 to 10. It's like a French
Okay.
judge in ice skating. Like, I feel like that sometimes. But what I send out for each of them is I send in my report for them to
Uh-huh.
instantly start to check me and then push back at our subsequent meeting.
Mm.
I send a link to an established recording, a common recording, so they can hear how it sounds in a theoretical environment, a link to the lyrics alone, so they can maybe have
Mm.
those going side by side and really read what's being proposed here. And then I have M.E.L.T.S, and then I'll have my attempt at a rating with each of them, along with a blurb. I don't do T rated. How do
Okay.
you
Yeah.
rate theological
Right.
accuracy? Well, it's kind of sort of. I'll give it a 6. No, not for our churches. No
Right.
way. That
Right.
one's a pass fail. It
Right. It's
doesn't
good.
make melts if the
Mm-hmm.
T test fails. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
not theologically accurate, they'll never see
Yeah.
it. It's
Right.
it's it's out. It's chucked out. But for many songs, they are not 10s across the board, nor can they be, nor should be. I'll think of something like "Yet Not I."
Mm.
Yet not I, but through Christ in me. I mean, that's a winner. I rated it so high back when we rated it.
Mm-hmm.
Through else, T test obviously passed.
Mm-hmm.
Singable, the S 10, L 10. Yet not I is in a hymnic meter.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to the back of a hymnal and there's number of syllables, number of syllables, number of syllables per stanza, it actually lines up with established hymns that are hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
When City Light wrote it, I don't know if they meant to or just followed it once they realized it, but it's in a meter syllabically that is
Mm.
like a hymnal. It could work in a hymnal, except it was written in 2018. L is high for lyrically robust. S is high for singability, very simple melody. I would say the E is pretty darn high, encouraging worship response. I think I gave it like an 8. M, a smidge lower. It's a
Mm.
very simple song. It's not doing a lot of crazy things. As again, that's not the most important thing.
Right.
Melts is not in order of importance. It's in order of, hey, it made acronym. And that's what Melts is in the order of. That's
Right.
why we've got
Right.
it in that order. But M's a little lower for Yet Not I, but Through Christ in Me. It's a little simpler, but it doesn't have to be to make it. So you rate it something out of 10, something out of 10, something out of 10. You come up with something out of 40,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
knowing that as soon as you click send on that email on that rating, it's out of date. Our
Yeah.
preferences change. Where we are from day to day matters. Instantly getting proper pushback from the other worship pastors, instantly getting proper pushback from the senior pastor, the teaching pastor perspective. So it's out of date, but you try. So one, you quantify the unquantifiable.
Mm-hmm.
2, like you said, Curtis, I'm scared of our own preferences being
Mm.
lorded over people. Enough of that already. Can we
Mm-hmm.
fight that and establish accountability? So
Mm.
it does not go on our list. It is not introduced unless the pastors, the teaching pastors rather, give their assent. They're on board. They like it. I do not want the pastor to say, "Oh, whatever you want." Nope.
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy way to get on a limb and have it underneath you.
Yeah.
That's a terrible. I require more of my senior pastor. Check me,
Mm.
verify me, please. These are theological messages put to song, like you said, pocket theology. This,
Mm-hmm.
if we're to be musician theologians, that is so important. Then finally, I'd say it's a record.
Mm.
Um, if someone were to come and say the song proposed tanks, you've got a month and you're introduce this song and sing it again, and maybe sing it a third time after a week off, and
Mm-hmm.
it just goes over like a lead balloon. And someone comes to you and say, Nathan, what were you thinking introducing that song? What are
Mm-hmm.
you thinking? You stinker. Where was your head? You can say, man, I was
Yep.
totally off on that. I can tell you, here, let me send you my
Yeah.
report,
That's
my
good.
M.E.L.T.S report. And at least they can say, okay, Nathan put thought into it.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. Even if he was dead wrong, he 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 showed his work like in math class. So I would
Yeah.
say it's quantifying the quantifiable, it's establishing accountability, and it's a record of
That's
sorts.
so good, man. That's so good. I hope people watching this have their notebook out and are taking notes, or can pause and rewind, because I just think this is super beneficial. Um, I don't want to digress too much, but one thing that came up, and this could get sticky, but I want to get practical here, because I don't know if I know the answer to this. That's why I'd love your feedback. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they said that and I can't remember what church background denomination they're a part of, so that would play into some of this. But um, what a beautiful name it is. They can't sing at their church because the second verse says you didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven here. So like speak to that, whether like I'm not asking for your opinion on that, but like, I don't feel like I've been lazy and just singing a popular song, but like that song, it breathes a lot of power, I feel. But it's caused me to like, okay, well, let me take a closer look. But have you ever encountered something like that where there was a line in a song that just was a little weird, and was it enough that where it crossed into that pass fail of T, or even was it, which I don't know how legal this is, like changing the lyrics, because when you're singing somebody else's song and you're projecting it, like I don't know, like if that's even allowed, but like have you encountered anything like that where there's just a line that kind of, yeah, speak to that a little bit.
Glad you brought it up, because the risk for us may not be the theologically out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rare that you get it, but you do get it. I'll give you an example of that one.
Mm,
I have a conviction. I believe in a literal reading of Genesis 1 through 11.
mm,
I am of that conviction.
mm-hmm,
That's how I'm raising my family, and I believe that to be the case uh, in 24-hour period of creation, an
mm-hmm,
evening and morning of a day, in my
mm-hmm,
theology and understanding is uh, correct. That's the biblical view that I take. Therefore, the
mm-hmm,
popular song a few years back, "So Will I,"
mm-hmm.
that Hillsong put out,
Right.
that one failed T-test. It actually failed, and that's rare. But I
Mm,
had to tell my pastor at the time, if you, I don't think you want this, pastor, but if you did, I could not.
mm,
We would have a
mm-hmm.
problem. I could
Yeah.
not, in good conscience, lead that song because of, I believe, it's the second verse or second pre-chorus, evolving in pursuit of what you said, I think was the line.
Mm,
And I
mm,
had to really stick with that because it was a time when that was very popular. But more often, it's what you mentioned with "What a Beautiful Name," or gosh, a few years back, "Reckless Love." I've
mm.
served at churches where "Reckless Love" was perfectly fine,
Right.
and I've served at churches where "Reckless Love" was out of bounds. I will
Right.
say at Canaan, prior to my arrival, there was a push, well-meaning, to get certain song libraries from certain authoring groups like thinking about Elevation, Hillsong, Bethel, those big cohorts,
Mm-hmm.
get them dismissed out of hand
Yeah.
as being done at Canaan.
Mm,
And when I was interviewing, they said, "How do you feel about such songs?" And that's a big question. And it
right.
was, in this case, it was Bethel.
Yeah.
What I told them is that my conviction is we must judge the song
Yep.
by the song.
So
not by
good.
the author.
Yeah.
And so if we started judging the song by the theology of the author, at the time, whether it's changed, we would not sing it as well, because
Yeah.
Horatio Spafford, what a wonderful origin story to that, to that text that Philip Bliss then put music to, that classic hymn, "It Is Well With My
Mm-hmm.
Soul." Horatio Spafford went and started a cult group
Mm.
after that song was written and popularized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he went off the deep end theologically.
Mm.
So I do believe did Russell Robinson from "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing" fame. If
Mm.
we are judging these songs, these great hymns of the faith, by the author, we may forget that we would not be able to, in good conscience, sing "It Is Well With My Soul" or "Come
Mm.
Thou Fount of Every Blessing." And we're not going to stop singing those timeless songs.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
excellent, excellent
Absolutely.
songs. Similarly, um, I do not believe we should disqualify songs based on the theology of the author. I will say, though, that a song, and we do some Bethel songs, I do look at them a little more carefully.
Sure.
I do kind of root for them to be able to stand a triple, if not a home run, in that
Yeah.
sense, because I know they're going to be scrutinized by the folks, the
Sure.
well-meaning folks at Canaan, who are very uncomfortable with that. So if I ask them to sing a Bethel song, it had better be
Yeah.
an unimpeachable, theologically,
Yeah.
song, a real strong one. So it kind of made it tougher. But as far as the theological squishiness goes, we have um, not done "Reckless Love at Canaan," even though I personally am very comfortable with the phrase, um, the reckless love of God, seeming reckless to the world, much as the
Mm-hmm.
father in the prodigal son parable, seeming reckless when he ran through the streets of
Right.
town to save the prodigal son. The shame of it, he took that
Yeah.
shame on himself. It seemed reckless to the world. I am
Yeah.
comfortable with that picture, but it's uncomfortable enough to enough folks in the congregation that I've set
Mm-hmm.
that song aside here at Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with "What a Beautiful Name." I agree that that is a theologically squishy one. So that, I think, in Melts is the real money stuff. Really
Mm-hmm.
going over and saying, okay, it's not theologically inaccurate necessarily, but is it
Mm-hmm.
squishy enough that we need to be very careful in considering it, if at all? So Curtis, man, it's tough,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd call it theologically squishy in those
Yeah.
areas.
Well, that's a true pastor right there. Like you're it's not even a preference thing. It's more of a like shepherding of your flock. And if this is a going to be kind of something that's maybe a stumbling block or just so it's beyond their preference. It's just something that they're going to wrestle with. Like you are pastoring them, and so you value that above what you want to sing. So I think that's extremely valuable. And you are taking your position, your anointed position, seriously. um Love that. Hey, couple more questions for you. So man, I've taken a lot of notes here, and I knew I was going to love this time, and so may have you on some other episodes too, because I feel like I can learn so much, and the people that watch this can learn so much. What's one song now that is currently tracking well and it's melting your face off? See what I did there?
That's right. Yeah, Curtis, I appreciate you too. Right back at you with this professional, ministerial,
Mm,
friendly thievery. I'll tell you, a song that's really tracking is one we have been introducing this month of October, and it may have been on people's minds for a while, but it's a deeper cut. I find not many people know it. It's the song "Glorious" by Sovereign Grace.
mm.
Have I given you a deep cut, or are you familiar with that one, Curtis?
I don't think I am. I know some of their stuff, but I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
Oh, good. I got you. Oh, I put you on the spot, and I
Yeah.
happen to know it. Good. It can be useful to you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm thrilled with this one, in a powerful way. So many songs, as they should, pull from Scripture. They
Mhm.
reference particular passages. This is the first one I remember encountering that has a scriptural passage reference in every line,
Wow.
such that when I was considering it and being thrilled by it, I what did I wrote it down. I actually had to devote for our staff. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, here's the song we're going to introduce in a few months, and on audio you can't appreciate it, but I just said, uh, let me actually look up every passage, every line of this song is referencing. So when it
Wow.
comes through with these first couple of verses of Glorious, um, talking about to and about Jesus, you slept beneath the stars you named and numbered. That's in Hebrews 1.
Hmm.
Tempted in a desert you designed. It's Matthew 4. You
Hmm.
faithfully obeyed the law you authored. John 1. The king left his throne behind. John 3. You washed the feet of those who called you master, John 13, and fed the multitudes with truth and bread, Matthew 14. You shared the feast with harlots and with sinners, Mark 2, and loved those who sought your death, Luke 23. And only then do
Hmm.
we get to the chorus. Glorious, Lord, you are glorious, shepherd and king, forever you'll be glorious. And I was just blown away by the thickness, the depth of
Wow.
that. So yeah, Glorious by Sovereign Grace has been
Wow.
rocking my world of late.
That's awesome. Man, what's this is something else that I've kind of implemented in the last probably 6 years of my leadership of just trying to, like, I'm not a huge reader. I mean, maybe in grade school I was, but I've learned that man, there's just so much value in reading, obviously the Bible, but like, okay, what, so I set reading goals every year. And so is there a particular book that you're currently in or just read, or and it was transformational in some way that you could share with us?
Curtis, let me affirm you, you are ahead of me. I'm so bad about neglecting my reading. Okay, I'll tell you, we're on this video right now. You see that stack of books
Yeah.
right there?
Yeah.
Yep. I gotta get those. And I
Okay.
have not. In fact, I think it's a double stack. It's horrible, horrible. But I'm finally implementing, I think, what you have had a memo on for years. There is a book I'm trying to lead my team through, and they've
Mm,
been good sports about it. I bought a whole bunch and we're doing it.
yeah.
In this case, it's the 9 Mark book. It's Corporate Worship by Matt Merker. Here, I pulled it out when I
Okay.
heard you were going to ask.
Nice.
Um, it's a thin
Nice.
book, which unintimidating. It's thick and rich, and we're not going to
Wow.
agree with Matt Merker on everything, uh,
Hmm.
but it starts the conversation in a powerful way. Yeah, Corporate Worship by Matt Merker is something I just told my
Awesome.
team is like, hey, we haven't done this before. I haven't implemented this, but let's take 6 months. Let's do a chapter
Yeah.
a month. Come on,
That's
and
awesome.
it seems to be yeah, they seem to be good sports so far. But for me, man, Curtis, I'm enjoying a book right now, but again, I'm the kind of guy who did not get that memo. Like you're better about this, and I really need to. The thing that works for me, even for like Bible reading through the
Hmm.
Bible, even dated reading plans are too
Hmm.
uh judgmental when I miss a days at a
Right.
time or week at a
Yep.
time or whatever. I have I'm on a plan that a group of people put a decade ago called the Bible Reading Plan for Shirkers and Slackers. I
Hmm.
will totally send it to you as a PDF because I love it.
Nice.
The Bible
Love it.
Reading Plan for Shirkers and
Okay.
Slackers. Yeah.
I
It is
love it.
arranged by category and day of the week, undated, undated
Really?
to read through the Bible. So
Oh,
yeah, so
wow.
if you've done well and like Monday is like, oh, I'm done with Monday, but Tuesday was a dumpster fire all through the year. Oh, great. I'm gonna
Yeah.
you go to
Yeah.
where you need to fill in. But one of the things I was gifted this devotional called Abiding Dependence.
Hmm.
Um, it's by Ron Block, who is a true musician theologian because he was the guitar player for Alison Krauss and
Really?
Union Station. And the guy
Really?
wrote a devotional. Who thought?
Wow.
But it is so
Interesting.
rich. Yeah. So it's just and this is the thing that's been rocking my world. I try to read from this. Um when I do my time after reading a portion, I'll go to this and other devotionals. So yeah, so it's Core Worship by Matt Merker from my team, and then
Okay.
Abiding Dependence by
Dude,
Ron Block.
I love it. And I've not heard of either one of those. So I'm definitely marking them down. So that's why I ask these questions, because I can learn something. And hey, I've not known about that one. So last thing for you, is there a app or a tool of some sort that's we live in the technology world, and so it's finding ways to work smarter, not harder. Like, so is there something that is working and helping you out in your job?
I'm very glad to be um, continuing to be a faithful podcast listener to you, because I think you are more on the pole of that than I am. But I'll share one. It's kind
Yeah.
of a throwback. I've
Nice.
had in my worship leaders that my colleagues here in the area. I recently had occasion to encourage them, if they ever need to record harmony demos for their team. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
got eye learners that are great sheet music readers, and they can
Yeah.
read good harmony suggestions that publishers pull out, praise charts and muse notes and others. Um, they're great like that. But you may have a mix of people on your team. You may not have eye
Right.
learners. You may have ear learners.
Yeah.
And you'd have both is the best, but
Right.
maybe they're ear learners and they need instruction. They need an example. They need a demo. And maybe you've been like Ian, recording something on someone's phone real quick during rehearsal. No, sing this part. I'm thinking this is going to be best. And I'll go down here. And we're kind of scrambling and fumbling. And sometimes you have to do that. But I use, man, old school, keeping it simple, keeping it easy. And I told the worship pastors in the area, worship leaders in the area, you don't have to do a full studio. You don't have to get into fancy equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You can, but you can just start with just free stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I'm rocking Audacity.
There you
Audacity,
go.
just a
Yeah.
free, you know,
Yeah. I've forgotten about
you can,
Audacity. Yeah.
man, exactly, because it's so old school. But whatever you use, whatever
Yeah.
you use for that, you can make a 3-layer harmony demo for your
Mm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Trim an example, a chorus and a bridge of something you need them to learn, turn it down, record yourself. And I always call them creepy demos because it's multiple of Nathan, very, very creepy. And you have them listen to me trying to demo the alto harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be in the wrong octave, but you can pass level 1 singer and get to that alto harmony
Yeah.
demo. And you're like, okay, I can sing along with that. Well, go to level 2, which is just in Audacity, chord the other parts, mix them together real quick and export it
Yeah.
as an MP3. Have your singers sing along to level 2, which is a full mix. Okay, can you
Yeah.
sing along to your alto harmony,
Right.
hypothetical singer, while you're being distracted by the others? Can
Right.
you? You've passed level 2 in your own practice time. What's level
That's so
3?
good.
Final level to see if you're ready for rehearsal is pull up the tenor harmony demo, pull up the bass harmony, pull up soprano, whatever that demo
Mm-hmm.
is. Can you maintain the integrity on your alto harmony demo when you're being distracted by creepy me singing another part in your ear? If you
Yeah.
have, kudos to you. And again, I put those for our team use. Um, each demo layer, and then Audacity so simple you can export one of them
Yeah.
individually or all of them there with a bit of a reference track behind them. uh,
Yeah.
that's Audacity is still rocking my world, old school, but just as a means to equip the
Right.
ear learners on my team in that way.
That's good. That's good. And I mean, that's kind of who I've worked with over the years. It's typically more ear than the visual, just because and so like that, those types of resources are extremely helpful to them. So yeah, no, I'm glad you shared that, because that's again, it's you setting them up for success, instead of just giving them, it's you taking ownership and good stewardship of your role, really is what it is. So um man, thanks so much for sharing with me today. I've written a lot. I've written my sheet all up, so have a lot of good notes here. And so I'm so glad you reached out a couple weeks ago. And yeah, who knows what we'll talk about next, but I'd love to keep conversations going, because commend you for the value you place in, you're not just picking songs, you're shepherding your people, and you're stewarding that well through this melts process, and I love it. So I'm going to probably be stealing some of that. Stealing is too harsh of a word, but I think we could use that here at our church a lot. So I appreciate you sharing that with me today. So yeah.
Curtis, I'm grateful, you, sir. Thank you for your time. And again, I'm tuning in because you're being a
Yeah.
blessing to a lot of people, myself included, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, blessings to you, Nathan, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Awesome. Curtis, we'll see you, brother.
All right, see ya.
I hope that blessed you guys today. Man, I wrote a lot of notes and took a lot of things down, took a lot of takeaways from that. And so I'll do my best to put some of those things he talked about in the show notes for you to look at. And I apologize for the video quality. My video feed went out pretty early on in our conversation, but felt like the conversation was so valuable, then try to reshoot it and make another call. So blessings and have a good rest of your day.